Tonight, connect with Mary Brown-Guillory. She lives in Burlington, is a mother, and is founding Vermont's first NAACP chapter. Find out what motivated her to take action and the change she wants to see so that everyone feels welcome in Vermont. Well, Mary, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So first, I want to learn a little bit more about you. You grew up in Louisiana. What was it like growing up there?
It was Vinton, Louisiana is the safest place in the country to raise a child. I think there's about 3,000 citizens, and everyone knows everyone. So whatever you did we had like 3 streets, the front street, East Street, and the back street. So if you did something on the back street, by the time you got to Eddy Street, all the neighbors knew, and they were like, "You're gonna be in trouble." So yes.
So you were a good kid or not? You were one of 7.
I was a tomboy growing up. At least I thought I was. And I was one of 7. I'm the baby of the 7. And so I had a lot of mothering and a lot of inclusive playmates. They were just there. So
you were never lonely?
Never lonely at all. I loved growing up in the South. I remember when I moved to the North, and the first time I saw the price of groceries, I called home. I mean, seafood, I was like, "Mom, they want so much for shrimp," and she sent me a big care package of all kinds of stuff because I just couldn't purchase it. I was like, it's too high.
So you loved growing up in Louisiana. Eventually your path took you to Vermont. Your husband got relocated to work for IBM. What did you think about moving to Vermont? Had you been there before? What did you think about that?
I had not been here before the first time we came here. He was coming here to train individuals at IBM, and eventually they offered him a job, and he said it was my decision, so we came up to visit, and I just remember how cold it was, and we didn't see any people. It was so cold, we did not see anyone.
That's
it was just so cold.
Yep.
So.
And so your first impression was no people and cold.
Yes, and then we looked for homes, and we finally had to buy through a builder, and that was interesting. But we moved with about 30 families of color up here, and I want to say I think there's one other family left.
So you all moved just happenstance at the same time?
Yes, it was. I'm not sure what IBM's mission was at that time, but when we moved here with 30 other families at the time, which was good because our children had playmates. We had other people, confidants that we could exchange and talk to and get to know the area. And if you had to move to Vermont at that time, it was perfect.
And so that was in the early 90s, right?
Yeah, that was in the early 90s. I want to say 92, 93.
And you have 2 children, a boy and a girl. And when you moved up, had you already had them, or did you have them in Vermont?
No, nope. Dion was born in Louisiana. She was delivered by the same doctor that delivered me and my husband. My husband was my next door neighbor. And then Jerry Jr. was born in Kingston, New York. So, but when we came up, Junior was going to Champlain School, I remember that, and Dion was in Edmonds, so, you know.
So when you moved up, did you have any trepidations about what it meant being in Vermont, beyond just the cold, which we all learned to deal with, hopefully, but did you have any concerns about leaving your home and sort of where you felt more comfortable? Did you have concerns going in that this could be a tough spot for your children?
I had my first concern. At first I was just naive, but my first concern happened when I told my mother we were moving to Vermont, and she had concerns, and she told me, she said, Vermont is one of the whitest states in the country. And I said, really? And she was like, yes. And she said, you have to make sure and take care of who you are. And I knew then. And I told her, I said, I'm not a trailblazer. I'm not going anywhere to trailblaze. I just want to raise my kids and have a, you know, easy life. And she told me, she said, well, you know who you are and you will speak when you need to. And so she had concerns though.
So you have had to speak at times. There was a protest that you organized and were part of at the YMCA in Burlington last summer that had to do with some inequality when it came to access to water. And so you were out rallying there with some folks, voicing your concerns, making sure it was heard.
I just find it appalling that someone would ask my son and other younger individuals to go and drink out of a shower head.
It broke down and didn't work for a few hours afterwards. In hindsight, it wasn't a good solution to the problem, but it wasn't our intent to offend anybody.
So what led you to that?
Well, they call it, it's a Midnight Madness basketball league. That's what they call it. I just say late night basketball. But my son was coaching there, and they had cut funding, and they weren't buying bottled water anymore. So they got a cooler, and they were filling glasses of water and going to the cooler and pouring the water in the cooler, which was filled with ice. They wanted cold water. He came home late, and he was so upset. And I just was like, well, what happened? And he told me, he said, they actually wouldn't let us drink out of the water fountain. Now, I actually thought I was dreaming. I said, this has to be a dream. This cannot be happening in 2014. And so I said, what are you talking? And he said, I have pictures, I have video. And once I looked at that, I was appalled. And a few of us, we lobbied in front of the YMCA, and people were like, oh, but it's gonna rain. This just surpassed everything. I myself have never been denied access to a water fountain. And to have my son in 2014 say that to me, it made me sick. That's what it made me sick. I was appalled. How dare people do this? And the thing is, the employee was asked by management to tell them to go downstairs into the bowels of the Y, which are not that great, but to see the picture of the actual waterhead that they wanted them to drink out of. I'm just thinking about it. The worst.
So what did you think? So you had the rally to highlight what had happened to your son. Mm-hmm. How did the Y respond?
But it wasn't just my son. Mm-hmm. It was there are children involved. This is a league that supports children that need a place to go on a Friday night. We're not talking just black children. We're talking about children that are economically in need. And for them to do that to them was just so disrespectful to humanity. It's like you coming to visit my house, and then I take you underneath the house and say, you have to eat and drink here. It hurt my heart, and it hurt those children, because I talked to them, and they had so much to say, and they're so discriminated against already. And this was an event that they participate in, that they love, and then for them to do that. And I know the Y says that their fountains broke, but the thing about great people is the next day, people from the yoga class said, well, we had something the next morning and the fountain wasn't broke, or we were in the building right before the team stood, the group organized for the league, the Friday night league, and there was nothing wrong with the fountains. So it was discrimination, and it was blatant, and they said, yes, we did it, and my heart still hurts. And they didn't do any training. They had no diversity training. They were no sensitivity. They just were ignorant.
So after that, and you're frustrated from that event and what happened, clearly, did the Y ever explain to you what happened? Because obviously I think they thought it was a miscommunication.
Yes, they did meet with us, and that's when I found out that they were lacking in diversity training and cultural pluralism, and that their management had asked that my son and the young men go downstairs into the bowels of the men's locker room and get this water from this rusty water fountain or water spout. But let me see, how do I explain it? It's not even if they made a mistake, what was their intent? You know, is your intent to damage, or is your intent to build up? Is your intent to support, or is your intent to tear down? And I think my major concern was the Y does great work. The Y, I mean, without the YMCA in our communities, a lot of our children wouldn't have access to a lot of sports, because now sports, you have to pay for everything from gymnastics, basketball, tennis, you have to swimming lessons. And this was a group of kids that trusted the Y, and the Y took that trust and they hurt them.
So fast forward, you send out news that you want to found the first NAACP chapter here in Vermont. You're going to have your first meeting coming up shortly. Why did you want to take that step?
Well, because I feel like the area leadership, our elected officials, our city council people, our businesses, most of Vermont's efforts are grassroots organizations trying to make change. But nobody really, they dismiss whatever the concern is. They don't address it. They just dismiss it, just like I felt like the YMCA did with us, just like I felt like the University Mall did when trying to get a haircut, just like I feel like the realtors do in this area. They want to put you where they want to put you. They don't want to bring you to nice neighborhoods, and car dealerships won't sell you a car. It's time that this behavior stop. And so I was just tired. I was tired of hearing about people trying to get gas. I'm tired of trying to ride down Williston Road. I don't take Williston Road because I will get stopped in Burlington, get stopped in South Burlington, get stopped in Williston. And you can't even drive down the street just trying to get somewhere.
So you have a history with the NAACP. Your mother actually was president of a chapter in Louisiana. What does she think about what you're doing here?
Well, my mother has since passed, but one of my sisters wrote me a short note. And as I said, I didn't want to follow the role of activist, or I didn't want to be a trailblazer I love a paved walkway. I love it. However, when the hair salon in the University Mall would not cut my grandson's hair, and it said all welcome, walk-ins welcome, I knew we had to do something. What did they say to you? We're not cutting his hair. They said, first they said come back in 20 minutes, and then when I came back, they were sitting down, the operators, the hair salon operators, were sitting in chairs, and I have pictures of them sitting in chairs. And the lady told me, we're busy and we're not cutting his hair. And I just looked, and I asked, is it that you don't know how to cut his hair? And she said, we're not cutting his hair. And then I said, why? And she said, we're busy, we have appointments. And 3 operators were sitting in the chairs. 2 were sitting, 1 was playing with the other one's hair, and this other lady was trying to get me out of the business.
So what did your sisters say when you told them about this latest NAACP idea that you had to bring it here?
Well, they donated money, and I think they're sad that, you know, that we have to, the NAACP was founded in 1909. And I'm still fighting for access rights in 2015. It doesn't matter what your educational background is. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter if you're a nice person. People judge you by the color of your skin. I want you to judge me, as Martin Luther King said, by the content of my character. Don't look at me and say, you know, no, you can't have access, you can't get in this restaurant. even if I have money or a credit card that's valid, because who carries money anymore? But even if I have a credit card that's valid, you get to dismiss me. It's wrong.
So what will success look like for you in this endeavor? How will you know when you look back and you say, yep, this has worked, or this was the right decision, or this was the group that was really going to help?
Well, I think you measure success by the different variations, because I hate to say it, in my lifetime, I don't feel that we will ever be, human beings will respect each other for human beings. I don't feel it's racism. I feel I'm tired of the word racism, because we're all human. And I donate blood, and I never see them put, this is black blood, she's part American Indian, she's part Haitian. They just put what my blood type is on there. And I want a better place for our children. I believe, I know it's too late for me, because even with a African American or predominantly African American president, the disrespect that they've shown him, the disrespect that I see in our country hurts my heart, because I love the United States, but I hate seeing the way we are right now. And I think we were complacent for so many years. I think individuals like me were just trying to raise their children and go to work and do what we could, and then it hit us right in the face, because it's hitting our children. It's affecting our children, it's affecting our grandchildren, it's affecting our neighbors, it's affecting our country, and we can't hide it anymore.
Well, when you talk, of course, about really the tough moments that have happened across the country, innocent lives lost, there's been protests across the country, of course, in Ferguson, and across the country. What have you thought when you've seen what really was a boiling point around a conversation around race? Do you see this as something that is going to move the country forward, or do you see this as just a bump in what's been a very bad road?
I see this as evolution. We can't hide. There's a saying that what you do in the dark comes to the light. We can't hide this anymore. But I can tell you this, I make sure that my life insurance is paid. I make sure my car insurance is paid. I make sure my cars are registered. Everything is taken care of, because I don't want to give them a reason for hurting me or my family members. I hate leaving my home every day and not knowing if I'm going to come back. And so yes, I've written my will and I'm prepared. Not only that, I pray for my children, because I don't know if they will come back. And I understand, I know Burlington Police or Williston Police or South Burlington, and Winooski's the worst. I know they think they're just stopping people, but suppose they're gun discharges. Just because they're just stopping me to ask me some questions, or to, I don't know, to validate if I'm black. I don't know why they do it, but suppose their gun discharges, or suppose I move too swiftly, or my daughter moves too swiftly, and not just my family or my neighbor, my girlfriend. Suppose we do something that they think are perceived to be the wrong movement. I could be killed. And so I think that there's a time that everyone must speak. There's a time when you have to get tired of disrespect. I try to be respectful. I try to say thank you. I try to treat people with compassion. But I'm seeing that individuals who are privileged are not doing that in today's society. They feel they can treat you as they treat you.
I think, a lot of Vermonters are probably going to be surprised by this, because as you said, I think they think of us as a more liberal state perhaps, but you did mention we're I believe the second whitest, probably second oldest as well. When you talk to Vermonters about this, what kind of feedback do you get?
Well, I talked to some people today, and I'm a very diverse person. I have friends from all backgrounds and walks of life. And I talked to somebody today, and they first they deny it. And I always wonder, are they denying it to say, no, it doesn't exist? Or are they denying it, one, to say, I'm not aware of it? Or are they denying it so they don't have to own it? And so because of those things, I don't know I always want to know, what do you think And then they say, well, I didn't know that happened. However, I did talk to my neighbors who adopted a child of color. And I'm not sure they saw it before as blatantly as they see it now. Like their child is, people will say, well, oh, he's going to be great with sports, or he's an athlete, you can tell. But they don't ever think that maybe he might want to be a scientist or a doctor or something like that. They just blatantly compartmentalize what they think his options are.
You mentioned young boys, young men. That's actually a focus of the national NAACP chapter. They recently put together a video that highlights one of their big areas of concerns when it comes to traffic stops.
I have my entire life ahead of me.
But every time I get pulled over for driving while black,
I fear for my life. Surrendering, not having a weapon, abiding by the law.
being cooperative,
None of it seems to be enough.
not as long as my skin looks like this.
Like this, like this.
You have on the Vermont chapter's website as you get going. What issues are you going to focus on here? What do you hope your platform and your goals are going to be?
Well, the platform is the same as the NAACP. Our mission is to fight for the advancement of all people of color, and to ensure political, educational, social, and economic equality. And when I say all people of color, we all have a color. I haven't met the clear person yet. So anyone can become a member of the Champlain area NAACP, and I'm hoping that through awareness and through talking, we can build bridges of communication.
So have you had any interest? This was just announced that you want to do this. What are you hearing from folks?
Well, we have a great group of officers and executives that are they're ready to work, and we need more. We need way more volunteers, especially people who are good with administrative work and website development and those kinds of things. But I'm inspired. You know, my grandfather was a part American Indian, and he would say one person makes a difference. And I'm not sure if this is my calling to make the difference, or for the NAACP, the Champlain area, our members, but I know that if we unite together, that our voices, even though my voice is just one voice, but when I unite with others, the voice and the sound becomes louder, and hopefully we can be heard.
So I understand that actually Vermont is the last state in the country, I believe, to get an NAACP chapter. Mm-hmm. Does that surprise you? Does that not? Or do you, because I think there's other groups who think they might be addressing this, but clearly not scratching the itch you have.
Well, I appreciate the work that individuals in the community have been doing regarding diversity initiatives. However, when the person who is experiencing the racial episode, they feel like they're knocking on a door of bricks, and they don't feel like when they're knocking, nobody is there to stand behind them and say, we got your back, or we're here to support you. And that's what I feel the NAACP is doing, is that when individuals bring us a concern, we evaluate it, we research it, we try to talk to as many parties, and then we represent their voice. We go with them, we lobby for them, we do what we must do, and that is stand for justice, treat everyone like an individual. You know, stop looking at the color of their skin, how tall they are, if they're old, if they're young, if they're what their sexual orientation is. Look at them as a human being. And that's what, you know, that's my goal, is to look at them as a human being. Because I think when we use the word racist, we make it like we're competing against each other. You hear race and we're competing. I'm not competing against anyone. Nobody I know is competing against anyone. We're just trying to identify who we are and what we're about. And we just need a safe community to respect that and treat us like you treat your family members, with respect.
Do you plan to stay in Vermont?
Okay, I'm happy about global warming because it's warmer. It hasn't been as bad as the winters were before, but it's not my goal to stay in Vermont. It was my husband has passed, and so he was here to work. We were here to work. I work too, but it's not my goal to stay in this state. One, it's too hostile, and two, it's not good for my health. And when I close my eyes at night, I really want to rest, and I'm still listening. I'm listening to see if somebody is going to violate my home or do something to one of my cars, or and I'm listening to make sure my family is arriving home safely.
Well, Mary Brown-Guillory in Vermont for now, founding the first NAACP chapter in Vermont. Thank you so much for sharing your story and connecting with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you so much.
God bless.
And thanks to you at home for watching. We want to connect with you and keep this conversation going. You can always reach out with feedback and ideas at connect@vermontpbs.org and get caught up on episodes and extra material at vpt.org. See you next time.